Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. This one is a little bit different than videos that I do. I don't normally do, collection showing necessarily. I kind of like to stick to a particular topic or an album or, review and focus in on that versus, just showing albums in my collection. Unless it's like a contest entry or something like that. But I had a fella, his name is Craig, over at A to Z Music. I'll put his channel below. Craig was watching one of my videos where I discussed my recent concert seeing Bob Dylan on April 1st, and he said, "Hey, maybe Sam, you should show your collection." And I have enough of a Dylan collection where it's nothing fancy about it at all. I don't have bootlegs and things like that, but I have enough where I can maybe make it interesting just so that you can see what I have. I don't have everything. I'm not a completist. Even though I would like to have all of Dylan's studio albums on CD and then maybe work up to vinyl. But let me show you my Dylan related albums, and yeah, that'll be it. So let me start with the vinyl, get that out of the way. I've only got a few on vinyl. This is the only copy of this album that I have on vinyl. This is Dylan from 1973. Not one that Dylan likes all that much. It was actually not authorized by Dylan to, it's on like Columbia. It's on great shape. And this album is actually out of print. And as far as I know, other than like the complete box set that came out with all of Dylan's albums, at least his first few albums on Columbia, this has never been released on CD. And Dylan doesn't want it to be released on CD because he was against it. It was a contractual obligation album, and there weren't even really sessions for this album. It was like a lot of sessions left over from Self-Portrait, New Morning, a lot of covers like he does, Sarah Jane, Mr. Bojangles, Big Yellow Taxi, Spanish is the Loving Tongue. So not considered one of his best, but I like it a lot, and hopefully y'all get it on CD. Next is Street Legal, the last album before his gospel phase, and I had this album before I had the CD version, and yeah, great stuff. And I can't really go into all of these because I've got a lot to show, so I'm just going to kind of run through it. Next, Slow Train Coming, the album that directly followed Street Legal. Again, I had this before I had it on CD, so got it for $8. And yeah, Street Legal. And then jump way ahead. This was a birthday gift. Shadows in the Night, Bob Dylan's first Sinatra album, came out in 2015. Hard to believe this album is 7 years old already. But I love these albums. All right, let me just run through his the studio albums and live albums that I have of him, and then I'll go to the next portion. So, just real rapid fire, you've seen all these albums. The first, Bob Dylan, self-titled. The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan on CD. Times They Are A-Changin', my favorite of his folk-era albums. Another Side of Bob Dylan, the last acoustic album up until Good As I've Been to You in the 90s. Bringing It All Back Home, of course the first of his electric period. Highway 61 Revisited, which I just did a video on Rich Strickler's channel with Glenn Kellaway, where we ranked the songs from the Highway 61, so go check that out. Blonde on Blonde, Glenn Kellaway's favorite Dylan album. John Wesley Harding, I got this used at my record store for $5. So it's not one that I'm as familiar with as others. And actually, this is the most recent Dylan album that I've purchased, I believe. Of course, that has All on the Watchtower on it. Very underrated Dylan album, Nashville Skyline, his shortest album, clocks in at under 30 minutes. Love that album. I've probably listened to that maybe more than any other Dylan album. Next, this album, Self-Portrait, bunch of covers and live takes and kind of Dylan's final middle finger to the system saying, I'm not the voice of your generation. I'm just a guy that likes folk music. Some interesting stuff on there, though. New Morning, fantastic album. It's got the song If Not For You, The Man in Me, Day of the Locust, which I love that song. Great songs. Bob Dylan's foray into soundtracks. This is Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And this has the song Knocking on Heaven's Door on it, of course. And again, I don't have everything, and you'll notice, some of the albums that I don't have. I'm not missing many on CD, but I've got about 4 or 5 that I don't have. Planet Waves. This was Bob Dylan's return with the band, of course, who backed him up in the 60s during his Electric tour. And then the accompanying live album, Before the Flood, Bob Dylan and the band. Doesn't have any songs from Planet Waves on it, though. But great stuff. You got great songs by the band and great performances by Dylan. I love the version of It's Alright Ma on that album. My next stack here, Blood on the Tracks. Fantastic. Many consider his best. Desire, which I'm not crazy about Desire. A lot of people love it, but it's not my favorite Dylan. It's not even in my front half, I would say, of Dylan albums. Topic of contention there. Then the CD version of Street Legal. Then we go into his gospel trilogy, Slow Train Coming, my second favorite of the 3 gospel albums. It's Larry Graves' favorite, the Canadian Stud Muffin. Favorite Dylan album. Saved with the different cover on it, not the hand going down. It's Dylan doing live work. That's my least favorite of the 3. And then my favorite, and possibly my top 5 favorite Dylan albums, is Shot of Love. It's got my favorite Dylan song on it, Every Grain of Sand, which I got to hear him do live earlier last week. Then Dylan goes back to his traditional style in terms of his non-gospel related music, even though this has some biblical themes on it. Infidels, another favorite of mine. Love it. And a recommendation for anybody that's trying to get into Dylan. Love that album. And I've just re-listened to several of these from the 80s because I was running through his discography before I saw him. And I'm still listening to his discography quite a bit right now. And so I kind of became reacquainted to these albums. Empire Burlesque, full-on 80s production. Not one of his best. Got some gems on it, like Dark Eyes and Emotionally Yours, but not much on it. And then what many consider to be his worst, I'm talking to you, Tommy Burton, it's Knocked Out Loaded. It's got the climactic Brownsville Girl on it, but it's also got some weird covers on it and some gospel songs. Well, kind of a gospel song. And then Down in the Groove, Dylan was really in a rut in the 80s. So again, he's sticking to some covers. But it's a great version of Rank Strangers on here. And then he's got the song Silvio with members of the Grateful Dead. He covered that with Robert Hunter. And then I think this is my first Dylan album that I ever purchased. Oh Mercy. Love this album. Produced by Daniel Lanois. Saw Dylan finish the 80s strong when he started them off. He started the 80s strong with Infidels and with Saved. With Shot of Love. Well, is that right? Shot of Love was 1981. And Saved was 1980. So he started the 80s with Saved, Shot of Love, and Infidels. And finished it with Oh Mercy. Killer album. Then he started the 90s kind of weak with Under the Red Sky. 1990. He's got a ton of guest musicians on here like Elton John, Eric Clapton, Slash, and it doesn't come across like that. But Under the Red Sky. And of course, during this time, you've got Dylan Hanging Out with the Wilburys. This is the Traveling Wilburys box set. It's got the 2 albums and a DVD with some music videos and a documentary. And Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 is one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. And then you have Dylan moving into the 90s. He kind of loses more steam and kind of has to dip his toe back into the well of songs that he, grew up listening to and was singing in the clubs. So he put out his first acoustic album since Another Side of Bob Dylan. This is Good As I've Been to You. Just re-listened to this album yesterday, and yeah, it's got some good stuff. They're all cover songs. It's just Dylan on guitar and harmonica, but I don't care for his voice in this, and I'm not usually a critic of his voice, but I'm not a big fan of his voice on this album or the next one, which is World Gone Wrong. Got a great version of Jack Rowe on here. Blood in My Eyes is good. So it's got some good stuff, but they're my lower tier. Then I've got this live Unplugged from MTV. Love this live album. He's got all of his greatest hits on here, really. And he's got some newer songs of the time, like Dignity from Oh Mercy, Shooting Star from Oh Mercy. And then the really deep cut, John Brown, which is one of my favorite deeper cuts by Bob Dylan. Then I just listened to this today, Time Out of Mind. Again, he's back with Daniel Lanois, who produced Oh Mercy almost, was it 8 years prior. So, great album. It concludes with the epic Highlands. Longest song of Dylan's catalog up until his most recent album. Then you have Love and Theft, which was another great album for Dylan to jump into the 21st century. This was actually released on 9/11 of 01, so it didn't quite do what people were hoping it would do because it was very strong, the album, but obviously the events of that day overshadowed any kind of music being released. Next, Modern Times. I love this album, love the song. Spirit on the Water, When the Deal Goes Down is great. Ain't Talking. Thunder on the Mountain opens it up. Great stuff. Then you notice I'm missing Together Through Life. I don't have that album for whatever reason. So we jump ahead to Tempest. This is my first Dylan album that I bought new, like when it came out. And God, it's hard to believe this album is 10 years old. That's just hard for me to believe that this album is already 10 years old. So Dylan was 71 when he put it out. Great songs on here. The song Duquesne Whistle is fantastic. Scarlet Town is very dark. Early Roman Kings, and then he's got his long epic Tempest, which is about the sinking of the Titanic, and then Roll On John, which is his tribute to John Lennon. So Tempest. Next, we're going to jump into the Sinatra trilogy. Shadows in the Night, which I showed it on vinyl earlier. Love this album. Love this version of Lucky Old Sun. Fallen Angels. Love this album. Really hate the back cover. It looks very cheap. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. It looks like it's like a bullet hole through broken glass, but it looks poorly made. But love this version of Polka Dots and Moonbeams, and then Melancholy Mood is on here, which he did when I saw him last week. And then this big old boy here, Triplicate, which is 3 discs of Sinatra music, 10 songs each, 30 songs total. I love it. Some people hate it. Love the packaging with the kind of aluminum looking sheen cover. And then his most recent album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, which I've talked about a few times. Great album. It's got the longest song he's ever done, Murder Most Foul. But really great. Really great. All right, let me jump into his bootleg series and box sets, and then I will be out of your hair. So the oldest bootleg series that I have is actually volume... Well, no, that's not right. Or is it? Yes, it is. The oldest bootleg series that I have is volume 8, Telltale Signs, which kind of goes from 89 through 06. Great stuff on here. Really some great versions of Mississippi, some unreleased stuff. So a lot of people consider that the best of the Bootleg series. Volume 9, the Whitmark demos, probably the most underwhelming of the Bootleg series that I have. I think just not too exciting. Just very similar to the Scorsese Bootleg series, which I don't have, from No Direction Home or No Way Home, but I have it. Volume 10. This is my favorite. Another Self-Portrait. I got this when it came out. Listened to this before I ever heard Self-Portrait, and absolutely brilliant stuff on here. It really makes you put into perspective the Self-Portrait album. It really does. The version on here of Spanish is The Loving Tongue is absolutely beautiful. Blows the album version out of the water. So check this out if you don't have it. Just get the 2-disc version. It's fantastic. And speaking of 2-disc versions, I have Volume 12, The Best of the Cutting Edge. I don't have the big box set yet. It just seems kind of overdone. The big box set has every note that he recorded in the mid-60s. This is covering the Bring Me All Back Home, Highway 61, and Blonde on Blonde sessions. And beautiful song, Farewell Angelina, is on here, the only take. So the only reason I would be getting the big version is to be a completist, but I would listen to it once and probably never go back to it, to be honest. Next, this one's great too. Volume 15, this goes from 67 through 69, came out in 2019. This is Traveling Through. This is essentially a Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash bootleg series, because disc 2 and 3 are predominantly Johnny Cash sessions. So even if you don't like Bob Dylan, if you're a Johnny Cash fan, check this out. I know Chris Prophy, I don't think he has this yet, but I told him about it. Robert from Robert's on My Turntable, he bought this because he was trying to get into Dylan, and I recommended this series first, so check it out. It's really, really good. And the last of my smaller box sets, I've got the Rolling Thunder Review, the complete recordings. It is several discs. I don't remember exactly how many. Disc. It's got the rehearsals, like sound checks and everything. It goes disc 14. 14 discs with a booklet. It's the 1975 recordings of the Rolling Thunder Review tour. And then Bob Dylan 1970, which this is not essential. This is a they advertise it as with special guest George Harrison. That was the big selling point. But really, if you have the Another Self-Portrait box set, you don't need this at all. It's just more takes of the same songs. And George Harrison is barely noticeable on it. You don't even really hear him. If you didn't know, if his name wasn't there, you would never know George Harrison was on this. So that was kind of false advertising-ish. It was almost put out for copyright issues because it was approaching the 50-year mark since those songs were recorded, and they needed to get them released so that they wouldn't go into the public domain. All right, now for my larger box sets. We have volume 10 here. So after listening to the Another Self-Portrait over and over and over and over again, I really wanted more from those sessions. So I got the big boy here, which has the tracks from the 2 sessions, but it's also got the complete Isle of Wight concert from 1969, where the Beatles were in attendance. And then disc 4, you have Self-Portraits remastering from 2013. So there's that. And then volume 11, I've got the complete basement tapes. This was my first mega box set that I bought from Dylan. This is Bob Dylan with the band and all the basement tapes from Woodstock in 1969. Yeah, just great acoustic Americana stuff. Next we have, what do we have here? 13. I'm trying to go in order, so bear with me. All right, it's this one. Trouble No More. This is his gospel bootleg series. Love it today. It's so good. It's essentially just a bunch of live recordings. A few sessions, but mostly live recordings. And Dylan's band was top of the line here. Just really, really great stuff. Jim Keltner on the drums. And then a lot of unreleased stuff that he only sang live. He didn't put them out on stereo recordings. And my last two here, let me just jump through these. Volume 14 is the More Blood, More Tracks. Now, I mentioned I didn't get the Cutting Edge large set. I got this one because Blood on the Tracks is my favorite Bob Dylan album. And all of these songs, this is 6 discs of just Blood on the Tracks songs. And they're very different and beautiful, and it's so good. I need to listen to it again, but fantastic. More Blood, More Tracks. And then lastly, Springtime in New York, the newest one. Love this. I need to listen to it again. I've only listened to it once, but I've listened to some of the songs several times. And it's his 80s stuff, but again, his 80s stuff from like Infidels through just until, really started with his gospel stuff and then moves on to just before Empire Burlesque. Well, right during Empire Burlesque, but there's some great, acoustic versions of those songs. So, Springtime in New York. And there you go. That's my Bob Dylan collection in a nutshell. Well, or not in a nutshell, but essentially the whole the whole pecan tree. Not just the shell, but thank you, Craig, for kind of asking me to do this. I appreciate you commenting. And thank you, everybody who's watching this. Appreciate your time. And please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll do some more videos here in the future. And yeah, y'all be good. Talk to y'all soon.